Howdy, everyone. Christine here with the TBC, and I am so excited to be sitting down with John West, an independent consultant in the Bitcoin space and Web5 space. We'll press in today to what that means, and also the founder of McKinney Bitcoin. John, thanks so much for being with me today.
Thank you, Christine. It is an honor to be here, especially with the Texas Blockchain Council and all the great work that you're doing in the state of Texas and have and continue to do. So thanks.
Well, thank you, and right back at you. I mean, I am really excited to have the chance to kind of press into what you're doing because I just see you everywhere and all the stuff with your education initiatives and your meetups. And so, really grateful for the opportunity to get to know your history a little bit in this space.
Thanks. Where do you want to start?
Well, let's get back to the beginning. I'm so curious about your orange pill experience, but maybe prior to that, what is your history in technology in general? Were you a tech guy before coming to Bitcoin?
I was. I'm a computer science major, and I programmed a lot the first 15 or so years of my life. And then I always stayed in technology, and it was always focused on creating software for sale, versus IT backend business systems. And so I spent 15 years creating software for lawyers, and then 15 years creating software for accountants. Um, and and my Bitcoin story kind of plays into that because it really started with the 2008 financial crisis.
Okay.
And so pre-Bitcoin. But when that happened, I was like, okay, I have no idea what just happened
Hmm.
or what is happening. But I was thinking this shouldn't be happening. Something is broken and I don't understand it. And if I told myself that if we don't figure this out, there's no way that I feel comfortable that we could manage wealth long term if I don't understand what just happened. And so I dug into all kinds of stuff at that point: interest rates, central banks, government funding, all that kind of stuff. And it led me to, and I became a gold bug.
Okay.
No,
Yeah.
no surprise. But it also led me to Bitcoin pretty early in 2010.
Really?
But I poo-pooed it for 5 years, saying there's no way that will work. And had people telling me, John, because they would hear me what I was talking about, what's broken, in the world financial system.
Yeah.
They were saying, you got to look at Bitcoin. You got to look at Bitcoin. And I did. It's not going to work.
And what was it about it that made you think it wouldn't work back then?
Partially it was people still criticizing it and it wasn't big enough.
Mm-hmm.
And, I didn't think that it would ever get large enough, or that the government would be able to outlaw it, or the government would be able to
Sure.
shut it down, or the typical concerns that you have when you come into it.
Yeah.
And I also thought that the government holds all the gold, so they'll just go back. I knew we were going to go back to sound money, but
Mm-hmm.
they'll just go back. They don't have any Bitcoin. They'll just go back to the gold
Yeah.
standard,
Yeah.
type of a thing. So it was those typical kinds of things. But after a while, you just see how big it's getting and the problems with gold. And
So it was the fact that it just kept going and
yeah.
getting bigger that eventually
And
you.
I finally dug into the tech more,
Hmm.
versus, just started digging in more, and saying, well, wait a minute, as a technologist, I should not just write this off. I should look into it more.
And what did you see when you looked under the cover that was so intriguing?
It's the whole decentralization story. It's the whole fact that it really is, well, first of all, it's digital scarcity, the first time that we've ever had anything scarce in the
Mm-hmm.
world, let alone digital. But then how that's enforced in the truly decentralized manner in the block wars. I mean, that was a huge convincing
Mm-hmm.
time, when it went through this huge test of who controls it. And it came out, very much like, well, the people control it. Even though you had these huge, big interests that were very clearly attempting to, and seemingly like they were going to control it, and they failed.
Yeah.
So lots of things like that.
Now, you mentioned earlier that you were talking about it and people were telling you about Bitcoin. You were talking about what you were finding out about sound money and gold. Have you always been an educator? What was your platform then? Were you just talking amongst friends or
Yeah, friends and family.
okay.
Yep.
Because that's one of the things that's striking about you, and it reminds me a lot of my own story. When I found out about Bitcoin, I couldn't not talk about it, and it was right when I lost, or the building that I managed up in DC went into foreclosure because of the pandemic, and I came to Texas and I just started an LLC to talk about Bitcoin, Noah's Bitcoin, and anyway, but it was, you feel like I can't not talk about
Hmm.
this, but how do you break into the space? And so I identify with you because you are also an educator and have been very successful in that realm. Can you tell me a little bit about how you went from looking into the technology and being convinced to, I have to spread the word?
Yeah. So 2015, I went down the Bitcoin rabbit hole, and hard, full on. And then actually at work, a large company, a tech company, I volunteered to say, hey, I'll dig into this in 2016. I'll dig into this blockchain crypto stuff. And so I led blockchain crypto R&D there for a few years,
Really?
which was,
Did you say where your work
it was
was?
Thomson Reuters. Yep.
Okay, fascinating.
Yep. So they essentially let me educate myself and do R&D for 3 years, and then I left and went on my own and independently consult. But I agree with you 100% to your point that when you find something like this, and especially in the beginning, everybody you talk to, that's what you talk about,
Yeah,
and you're annoying.
yeah,
And
yeah.
and then you
Gary.
figure out, yeah, okay, can't do that.
Yeah.
There's a better way.
Gary
Um,
Leland and I were talking about that last night where the family's like, "Don't bring up
yeah,
Bitcoin." And you don't know what to talk about because
it's always that's what's on your mind.
which it sounds like you had that experience back in 2008 that, "Oh my goodness, the world is falling apart and this doesn't make sense and I'm going to focus until I get some sort of answer."
Yes, and that's what people first told me to stop talking about.
Really?
Yeah,
Back in
and
2008?
well, about, the global financial system and how it was gonna collapse and, that kind of stuff, which is hilarious because when I think, and this was my experience, but when you start digging into how the system works
Mhm.
and what printing money means and what monetizing the debt means, I mean, you literally think this can't last. We are
Yeah.
at the end. This is
Yeah.
like within 5 years, it's going to collapse.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you realize, oh, wow, this has been going on for a long time.
That's right.
It's just new to me.
That's right.
I didn't know it was going on.
Exactly.
Uh,
That is exactly, I saw someone mention that point recently that whenever you get into Bitcoin or just the sound money and the whole debt-based monetary system, everybody seems to have this experience of it's happening tomorrow, the sky
yeah,
is falling. But that is one of the reasons why it's so important to have educators like yourself holding people's hands and, reminding people know that, there's a lot of, especially if you've lived through some of the ups and downs of the cycle, just the qualifications about not putting next month's rent money in it
yeah.
and dollar cost averaging, and this is not financial advice, but just helping people just kind of educate and see more broadly. Do you find, when did you start doing the consultant work?
Yeah, 2019. And I started consulting first in, well, it was blockchain Bitcoin, and I still call myself a blockchain consultant
Do you?
only because, primarily because it's a way to reach people.
Right.
And I think there's a really good purpose for Bitcoin maxis and toxic Bitcoin maxis even, but I'm not one of them because I can't reach as many people that way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, But so 2019, I started consulting and mostly focused on Bitcoin. And I also think there's more use cases for blockchain than just money, but not nearly as many as the world thinks. But then I also we lived in Addison at the time, and so I was close to all of the Bitcoin activity. Um, but we moved back out to McKinney a couple of years ago, which is where we raised our kids, and there was no meetup going on. And so that's when we started McKinney Bitcoin, uh, and um, and also the Bitcoin 101 sort of education stuff. But it was for two reasons, really. It was one, well, we moved away from it and there was nothing going on, so we had to
Yeah.
start something.
Yeah.
But two, we're also semi-retired, and so we wanted it as a way to give back to our community, and so the vision very much is, hey, Bitcoin is a big deal.
Yeah.
It's a big financial instrument. It's very important, and it's going to become a bigger deal.
Yeah.
And we want to help, our local community, the local people, the local small businesses, the local charities learn and apply it, because it's going to be a big deal. And the more people that are ready for it and prepared in our local community, the better off our community is going to be.
Have you seen it grow and then shrink with how the market is, or do you find that it's just continually growing as people go down the Bitcoin rabbit hole and see the system that they are stay? What's been your experience?
Yeah, we haven't really had, from a meetup perspective, the bear market attendance drop. It's very consistently been above 30.
Wow.
And we also really, really try to target and go after new people, versus it being a meetup of Bitcoiners. I mean, I love getting together with Bitcoiners, but
Yeah.
the whole goal is to reach new people and
Hmm.
educate new people. And so we'll have anywhere from, 5 to, we've got as many as 10, 12 people that are kind of brand new to Bitcoin show up. So,
And they can find people could find it on Meetup.
yep.
Is that where you advertise it? It's just McKinney Bitcoin.
Yeah, there's a Facebook page. There's a meetup.com uh, meetup page. Yeah, we advertise it on whatever channels, LinkedIn, Twitter, Nostr.
Tell me a little bit about the education, the Bitcoin 101. What's the genesis of that and what form does it take?
Um, the genesis was, you want to tell people.
Yeah. It sure is.
But it was really trying to think about, man, how do you tell people in a way that is interesting and they'll listen and they'll walk away with something?
Mhm.
Because I'm a technology person, and all my life I have always started too technical about how something works,
Mhm.
uh, because that's what I like.
Mhm.
So then it was telling them, well, why? And really, I finally boiled it down to, and was, I don't know, it might sound easy, but it wasn't. I finally boiled it down to 4 questions. It was just, and 4 really quick answers. So what problem does Bitcoin solve? Money printing.
Mhm.
How does it solve it? The most important way is the 21 million hard cap. Why is Bitcoin different than every other crypto? Bitcoin is the only one solving the money problem. None of the others are trying to solve that problem. They're all trying to solve different problems. And then the enticing one is, well, how big does Bitcoin need to get to solve this problem? 5 million per Bitcoin. So it's like those 4 questions, those 4 quick answers, but then diving into each one of those and doing that within anywhere from 15 minutes to 60 minutes to,
It is it in person, like
yeah.
that people can come to, and then do you also have it on video for people to watch?
No, I don't. I could, but I I'd rather always have the face-to-face time and let them ask
Yeah.
questions. And I mean, I'm not interested in building a big online presence. I'm just interested in one by one, helping people understand it.
What's been some of the hardest questions that you've gotten?
Oh, that's a really good question. Lately, for the last couple of years, the questions aren't hard because I've heard them all.
Yeah.
But before, when I first started, um, there were a lot of questions. All of the questions about, even as simple as, well, I can't hold it in my hand. This, it's not physical. What could possibly, or what could possibly, how could this possibly work?
Mhm.
Or they'll just change the software being able to answer that question in
Right.
a way that they can understand it versus just saying, well, it's decentralized. And then they're like, what?
Right.
Uh, okay, I didn't answer the question. They don't keep pressing me because they don't want to,
Right.
but they just walk away thinking, oh, it doesn't work. It won't work
Mm-hmm.
because I wasn't able to answer the question in a way they understood.
Hmm.
So it's the obvious questions,
Yeah.
being able to answer them in a way that the person will say, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Was the really hard part, I think.
Yeah. Now, you did not stop there with a meetup and an education offering. You've also been reaching out to merchants, correct? Tell
Yes.
me about your initiative with the 200 merchants, did you tell me?
Yeah, I like to call it the story of 200 merchants getting introduced to Bitcoin. I guess that's too long of a title,
Do
but
tell.
so this did start with McKinney Bitcoin, and our goal was, it is to reach local people, merchants, local small businesses, and charities. And the meetup typically, and the Bitcoin 101 reaches the people.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had an early idea that Bitcoin rewards, and actually for our meetup, we have like 10 steps for people to kind of go down, and our meetups kind of focus on these steps, 10 steps for people to learn and adopt Bitcoin and use it. We have like 7 steps for merchants, and we have like 3 or 4 steps for charities, different things they can go through. But they all start with Bitcoin rewards because Bitcoin rewards they're such an easy way for people to dip their toe into Bitcoin waters.
Mm-hmm.
Consumers don't have to make the hard decision to buy. They're sexy.
Yeah.
Everybody is doing it.
Yeah.
It's starting to do it. It's like, oh, you mean I can just earn them? Then all of a sudden they have Bitcoin. They start watching it.
Mm-hmm.
Merchants can give Bitcoin rewards. They can add Bitcoin to. Nobody wants to spend Bitcoin. Nobody is spending Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
But merchants can give them away as rewards, and consumers like that. And so it's a loyalty play. And merchants don't have to touch it. They don't have to know anything. They can reach a new community. They can use a new tech. They can say, "Hi, look at me."
Yeah.
And charities can even do it too, but it's a little more complicated. But so last year, I spent the year talking to about 200 merchants, small local businesses, mom and pop shops. And
Wow.
going into it, I was like, okay, I want to say the word Bitcoin early,
Okay.
and I want to know what their reaction is when I say the word Bitcoin. I figured a high percentage of them would tell me, no, I'm not interested, or just totally, or freak out, or totally, shut me out or go away type thing. So, and the response was unbelievable. It was overwhelming. Less than 2% told me go away.
Really?
More than 95% of the people said something like, yes, I want to learn more, or yeah, I hear about this Bitcoin thing. I don't know what it is. I feel like I should, tell me more.
Can I ask how you got your foot in the door? Were they contacts where you had personal relations?
Cold
or
calls.
Cold calls.
Yes.
And that percentage
Yeah. So here was the
were
pitch.
open. Okay. Yeah. Tell.
And it was with rewards. This is when I found Oshi.
Yeah. Tell about that. The app.
Oshi is an app so that small merchants can offer Bitcoin rewards,
Mm-hmm.
put pure and simple. And so I used Oshi to do the pitch. And so it was, I would walk into their store, or I would talk to them on the phone and say, hey, I would like to sell your store credit into the local community. And the reason that consumers will buy and rebuy your store credit is because they will receive Bitcoin rewards instead of cashback rewards. Would you like to see a demo? So I said Bitcoin, and then I would say, and this is where 95% of them would say, yes.
Tell me more.
Yes, I'd like to see a demo. And the demo is really simple. It takes 30 seconds, maybe a minute, because all you do is you fire up Oshi, and they see a map, and they see businesses on there,
Mm-hmm.
and they see
free advertising.
Yes, that too. It's a Groupon for Bitcoin, except way lesser fees. I mean, Groupon charges 40%. But
Was this at a particular period of time when Bitcoin was high, or have you had the same response now with the whole FTX and the black eye that some of the media about the space got?
I didn't do it as much during the FTX black eye stuff. So it was before that.
Okay.
And I imagine that there would be some reaction to it, but I also think I think it's pretty easy to get around because it's easy to say, well, that's crypto, it's not Bitcoin.
Right.
But, would you like to see a demo? But,
Yeah,
but
definitely.
it could go up a few percentage points. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I would show them the demo and they would see and I would say, and here's what the consumer's going to show you. And it's a QR code. And then they're like, oh yeah, I could do that. And then they say, what does it cost? Well, that's a great story too. And partly it's because of the Lightning Network.
Mm-hmm.
So they're paying anywhere from, 5 to 12% today for payment fees and marketing, on the platforms that they use.
Yeah.
And with Oshi, they can give a 5% Bitcoin reward and they will pay. And that's a pretty big, well, actually they pay more than that. On Groupon, they'll pay 40% or whatever type of a thing. But they could give a 2 or 3% Bitcoin reward and pay 6% total costs, which includes US dollars all the way into their bank account. And so they would hear that and they would go like, oh, that's good.
Yeah.
No problem. No brainer.
Why not do this?
Yep. Then they would ask, how many users are you going to bring me? And that's where it would fall apart because Oshi doesn't have a lot of consumers. And so it's the chicken and egg problem of consumers want businesses,
right.
Businesses want consumers,
right?
And small businesses especially, it's like they don't want to spend 1 single second on anything that doesn't bring them, business fairly quickly.
Is there a way to press into that then? Because you have a meetup, like going and bringing people to that particular place of business, or how do we help the network get to support those people that are amenable?
We've done that, and we've made decent progress, but really Oshi has got some things coming out that are, and we're actually in the process of testing them right now that are really helpful to this. Like DoorDash had this problem too. So what DoorDash did was they just took your order and then they would place the order manually. The restaurant didn't even know DoorDash was doing it. And then they would go to the restaurant later and say, hey, we're bringing you all this business, sign up. Okay. We're actually taking that approach with Oshi to some extent. But what they also have going on right now is when you check out at these stores, and then how you see after you check out, you see you sign your name and you see a message. Well, they're adding a message that says you've just received Bitcoin rewards. Enter your phone number to claim them. That is the link to get them on Oshi. And so that's being piloted right now at a handful of stores, and it's working really well as the hook to get consumers onboarded and to kind of get the bootstrap the ecosystem. So
that is great to hear.
Yeah, it's fun.
Now tell me, also, you do so many things in this space, and one of the things we said at the beginning, let's circle back, we talked about Web 5. What are you doing in that space? And maybe let's back up a little bit for our listeners. What is Web 5, especially in comparison to Web 1, 2, 3, and 4?
Yes. Yeah, we skipped 4. So people can pretty easily find this diagram. Web 1, Web 2, Web 3. And Web 1 is called the information economy, or read only. So all we could do with Web 1 in the early days was read stuff. Companies put up their homepage and all we could do is read about them.
Right.
Web 2 was read write. So the platform economy. And then we started to be able to do commerce. We started to be able to do transactions. We took the desktop apps and we had, better HTML solutions so that we could create functionality on the web. That was Web 2. Web 3 then was is supposed to be the decentralized economy, and it's read, write, and own. And so a key characteristic is we want people to possess their data, possess and control their data, whether it's their identity, because today your identity is all with the online systems that you use. Right. You get a user ID and password access to your identity, to your data. They hold it all. They own it all. Now, give everybody that data in their own personal store instead of storing it all centrally. So that's the possess, control part. Now, the problem, which is good, and this is happening, and there's two ways of doing this, technically. One is self-sovereign identity, and one is, the Web3 crypto stuff.
Yeah.
The problem is, and this has been going on well before the crypto Web3 stuff, the self-sovereign identity stuff, 10 years old, and very, very mature. The problem is you put your data there, and people start writing software to use that data, and we get all of these private, independent solutions to, even though you hold it, we get all of these custom private solutions to use your data. And so what's happening is, just the way users got locked into centralized systems before, they got locked into centralized data and software. Even though we're giving them their data, they're getting locked into centralized software solutions. So they're not getting away from centralization. That's why we can't use software, closed private software, to create a decentralized solution. And that's where I think Block figured out a brilliant solution to this with TBD and TBDEX, is to use a protocol to access that data and have that protocol become a standard instead of software. Software implements the protocol, but anybody can access it through a protocol. And I think that's really, really powerful, to use protocols instead of software.
Would Nostr be a part of this?
Yep, Nostr would be a
movement?
very good example. Yes. And so with Nostr, you are storing your own tweets in your own personal store. And then there's a protocol so that if somebody else, so like you could use the Damus client,
right?
Or you could use another one. I don't even know the name of another one. There's others out there though. They both implement the protocol. So if I'm running the other app and you're running Damus, I can follow you, and you have a database and I have a database of who we follow, and that message, I'm talking directly to you. It's peer-to-peer. I'm talking directly to you. I don't have to go through Twitter to talk to you. I'm talking directly to you over a protocol, and I can see the things that you tweet or publish, because the protocol lets us talk to each other in a standard way, and everybody can implement a client and storage to do that, instead of putting it on, a smart contract blockchain platform, which doesn't work anyway.
Excellent. So where do you see it going then? So Nostr is a good example. Do you see it in finance? How do you see it solving problems?
So with the internet, we got a few open protocols, and the goal was more. It was meant to be open. And we got HTTP and SMTP and FTP. So which that translates into, companies were able to add websites and talk to each other, with HTTP. Everybody could join this network by talking this HTTP protocol. And with email, it doesn't matter what email server you use, I can send you an email, because all of the email servers implement SMTP protocol, the same language that they talk to each other with. So I can send an email and not worry about who the email server is. But that's where the internet ended. We didn't get more functional protocols. And what Block is creating their first sort of functional protocol, a protocol to add to the internet, is a protocol for cross-border remittance and for on-ramp, off-ramp to crypto. So fiat to crypto, crypto to fiat. Okay. So they're defining messages that let me send money from me to you around the world.
Money meaning dollars? Because I'm thinking as you're talking about this, when people make a case for XRP, let's say, right? This whole idea that it's going to replace the SWIFT system, and not, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not shilling
It's a good
XRP.
example.
It's just like they use
good
it as an
example.
example, but this is something different. And so how would it work that a protocol, can I send, dollars into Naira, or with this protocol, how does it work?
Yeah. So the protocol implements messages for finding people on the internet and finding the people that you want to send money to, and maybe doing a couple of confirmation messages, and then actually doing a message that says, okay, now I want to send money from me to you.
Right.
And it doesn't matter what the money type is. The service providers can come in and provide different currencies, different money types to send over this protocol. And so it's a piece, it's a big piece of what XRP would do, or what's the other big one? Well, not Wells,
Icebreaker,
but Western Union,
yeah.
or those types of things.
Yeah, sure.
They have a protocol actually in their private systems,
Yeah.
and the messages that make this happen. But if you open that up to anybody being able to join the network, then you get all kinds of service providers, and no one controls the core messaging, where a whole bunch of rent is usually extracted unfairly.
Can I
and a
press
whole
it?
bunch of control.
When you say the service providers, could it be anyone, or they have to be hooked up to the system? Like, could Swift be a service provider?
They could be if they wanted to use the protocol to, front, help Swift do. Now, Swift is also duplicating some of this, but they could the people that are on Swift. Somebody could potentially create a bridge between Swift and this open protocols to make it easier for the people on Swift to use it. But you still have the problem of Swift being involved in all the censorship and all of the stuff that could happen inside of Swift. But it could give them access to bigger things if they wanted it. But yes, technically it's very easy for them to connect because it's permissionless.
Yeah.
It's just different than a blockchain environment. It's really just a simple defined messaging, and then there's open source code that implements the messaging, and then people just take it and run it.
So similar to Linux with free and open source software.
Yes.
These are free, I assume,
Yes.
and open source protocols that live on the internet, or they live in the
Yes.
Bitcoin blockchain?
No, they live on the internet.
Okay.
In the case of what Block is doing, they anchor some of the stuff for self-sovereign identity, for the identity pieces that are involved, to the Bitcoin network.
So you can secure it with your own private keys, the identity
It's more to
information?
accomplish the decentralized lookup resolution. So with this, it's not just the protocol. There's also the identity piece.
Yes.
And there's also you have an ID and I have an ID. And your ID is just a number.
Yeah.
And my ID is just a number. It doesn't tell anything about me. It's just a number.
Like on Nostr, it's basically a hash.
Yeah. And I share mine with you.
Right.
Now, when you want to use that, you have to somehow resolve it again, because you don't have this constant communications channel with me. You got to say, hey, I want to talk to this. And I may have given you my name, John, and this is his ID. So you got to ask the network, open a communications channel to this John. Well, it has to take this ID like DNS. So this ID is just like the domain name.
Yeah.
And we have centralized service providers today that resolve that, but we need a decentralized way. So in a way, it's a decentralized name service that doesn't run on a blockchain, which is very powerful. It's just a protocol that resolves it. But you have to have So you're going to say, I want to talk to this ID,
Yeah.
and then the network will resolve it. But a piece of that resolution needs to be decentralized. You can't have centralized data stored, and you got to be able to prove that the data hasn't been tampered with. And that's where Bitcoin comes into play. Bitcoin gets used for a time machine and not for money,
Hmm.
to stamp things in
I,
simple terms.
I love it. So it's the reverberations of the decentralized revolution, the
Yeah.
peer-to-peer cash system, into a broader and broader ecosystem.
Yes.
Thank you for explaining that so well. Tell me a little bit then about what you do in that space
Yes.
professionally, other than just explain it to people like me.
So I'm working with a company called FormFree, and they actually have created a really cool product. So you need a FICO score to get a loan.
Yeah.
The problem is there's a lot of people that want a loan that don't have a FICO score. They haven't used, and some of them they have a low FICO score. Some for good reason because they've abused debt,
Mm-hmm.
but some because they've never really used debt.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's
ironically, yeah,
because they've been good stewards and
yeah,
they just buy what they can
yeah,
afford.
yeah. So ironically, you know, to get debt, you need to have had debt.
Right.
But what these guys created a long time ago is they call it a RICI score, residual income something score, but it's your ability to pay. So if you want to share your bank records, where you spend your income, they can analyze that and say, oh, well, here's how much you have coming in. Here's your discretionary spending. Here's your expenses, and give you a RICI score. I don't remember the numbers, but there's like 40% of the population. If you have a RICI score under 620, lenders just throw you out. They don't even look because it's too hard to validate you. They don't have the tools. But these guys, and they've actually been doing this for 10 years, so some of the lenders are plugged into this, but they can identify 40% of the population, I think it's 40%, it's around there, that have less than 620 are like 90% able to service a loan. And so, but they also want to do self-sovereign, and they want to do open. And so they want to give this financial data and even the bank records to the consumer, and let other things happen in this network. So imagine a consumer that has their bank records are stuff that lots of people want access to, right? And today they get it, but they get it through back doors. So give it to the consumer and let the consumer decide what they want to exchange that for. And we also give the RICI score to the consumer. But we've defined a protocol, or we're defining a protocol, and we're actually calling it TB Lend versus TB Dex, that lenders can join, people that issue bank records can join, FICO can join. There's actually KYC players that can join so that you can share KYC credentials, and verification of employment. So you're giving those credentials, that data, to the consumer, and then they just go on the network and they have an app to do this that says, well, okay, I want a loan. And then they can choose to which lenders they want to entertain. And those lenders will tell them, well, this is what you need to give me in order for me to consider you. And any lender can join the network by running software that runs the protocol. So it's an open network in that sense. They're the initiation of an open network for lending, for financial services.
Do you see this as a better solution than something like DeFi, decentralized finance?
Yes, because of the tech it's using. DeFi. So I think blockchain smart contracts actually pointed us in a very good direction.
How so?
To decentralization, to
Sure.
peer-to-peer stuff happening. And DeFi is very good that way. It's trying to match somebody who wants a loan with somebody who wants to provide a loan.
Right.
That's functionally very good what it's doing.
Yeah.
It's just the technology that it's trying to use won't work. And the primary simple reason is the code in the form of smart contracts will never work on layer 1. It's impossible. And they know this. That's why they're trying to move it off layer 1.
To the layer 2 solutions.
Yeah.
That
But,
may or may not be associated with a token.
well, having a token is also a problem, but we won't even get into that. But running Turing complete code on thousands of computers, running Turing complete code will never, ever work. And in hindsight, I mean, it sounded really good. And I was even like, wow, this is cool. But then once you get into it further and you experience it, and it'll never work. It'll never scale.
For our listeners that don't know what the Turing complete code.
That's a good question. It's really code that is very flexible and lets you write anything that you want. You can write any software that you want and run it on these blockchains, and it's completely transparent. Anybody can see it, which is good too. But it's probably the biggest attack surface the world has ever created because anybody can see it, and all the hackers can see it.
Right.
It also runs. Today we run software on one computer.
Right.
And it's really efficient and fast because it runs on one computer.
Right.
If you try to run E-Trade, because this is what DeFi is, trying to match if you try to run E-Trade on thousands of computers for one transaction, that'll never work.
Yep. It's a great point about the whole idea of blockchain is such a sexy word, right? Like it's the future. But if you press into it, some things are better off centralized, or they're more efficient. Just with the what was it, the crypto kitties, like it's running down all the computers because you've got it everywhere. And so the question is, what is the best and most efficient way to do this? And what you're saying is that whole idea of a decentralized, basically supercomputer network where they're all running the Ethereum, all the smart contracts are running on each of the nodes, that maybe it's not the best solution,
Nope.
Even though the impulse is good, which is decentralized.
Yep.
But then when you bring in Web 5, we were saying, and to continue to press into that offers a better solution than the Turing complete decentralized supercomputer idea.
Yeah, because you're using a protocol and not smart contracts, and everybody is just running. You're not running the software on 1,000 nodes. And even in, the Ethereum's world, and it's not just Ethereum, but, trying to offload, and they're understandably trying to offload smart contracts to layer 2 to get them off layer 1 so that it doesn't run on thousands of computers.
Yep.
Well, then it runs on a handful.
Right.
Well, then what do you have?
Centralization.
Yes. So why are we using, we have, what they have then is they have a distributed solution, distributed technology, distributed database, distributed software solution running on the side of a blockchain, which is actually totally fine, but we have tech that does that very well. We don't need this, and they call it blockchain, which it's not, but they have to. But we don't need new tech for that solution. We have tech that works very well for that centralized solution, even though it's a distributed database or a distributed system. We have distributed system tech that's very, very good. So yes, that's why protocols are so much more powerful than smart contracts. But man, I know that's a really technical explanation.
No, you did a fantastic job with this.
I don't know.
Thank you. And being a tech person yourself, thank you for helping me progress my understanding on this. Where would you send people that want to learn more about this?
Web 5?
Yeah.
The is it TBD.io? But just search for block TBD. And all of their stuff is open source, and they have plans in place or in progress for how to fund it from an open source perspective so that their company could just completely disappear and it doesn't matter. They have a lot of good support for it already. It's actually using a lot of tech that's been in use for the last 10 years in the self-sovereign identity space. But yeah, that's where to go, TBD.
Excellent. Well, John, thank you so much for sitting down with me. For people that want to find more of you and maybe attend one of your Bitcoin 101 classes, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
They could go to bitcoin101.fyi.
.fyi.
Yep.
Okay.
They
I
can
love that.
definitely find me I post mostly on LinkedIn. So Jon West on LinkedIn. But on Twitter, it's ATTN like attention. JDW. I got into Twitter late, so didn't get a nice, had to come up with something that I could remember. Yeah, those are the places.
Excellent. And then the meetup,
Oh, yeah.
meetup.com for
McKinney Bitcoin on meetup.com is another way to get, and McKinney Bitcoin on Facebook is another way to find us.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for all you do in the space, all you do for the Texas Blockchain Council. Looking forward to coming to your meetup this week, actually.
Yes, we have you front and center. It'll be a lot of fun because people need to keep hearing over and over and over again, how much the impact the Texas Blockchain Council has on Texas, and bringing Bitcoin to Texas and clearing the path and educating, the state legislators and their staff, because that has, as much as I do not enjoy government or interacting with government, I appreciate the fact that you guys do and the outsized impact that it's had on Texas in terms of the Bitcoin growth here. And people need to hear that. And they also just even need to hear, more details about the latest, things that have gone well and the battles that have happened leading up during this session. Because, yeah, people need to appreciate what the TBC is doing and understand the success is because of, the minds that are being changed at the state level, because that does have a big impact. So you guys are coming out to, once again, repeat that story as you have done a million times.
Well, thank you for that. Well, and so I mean, the TBC is our members too, and
Yes.
you've been a great one. And you talked about the battle scars of the legislative session. We are almost done with it. May 29th, we'll be done, and so we're pretty close at this point. So it's always nice to retreat into the friends category
Yeah.
and celebrate together what we've done together. So thank you very much, and hope to have you on another time, and look forward to seeing you soon.
Thanks, Christine.
Well, thank you to all our listeners. And if you liked this interview, you'd really like the one we did last week with Gary Lee Leland as well, about the importance of meetups. Like, subscribe, and follow us for more content.